Operation Mockingbird was a fully implemented CIA program to spread disinformation throughout American media. CIA Director William Colby testified to the Church Committee that over 400 CIA agents were active in the U.S. media to control what was reported through American mainstream television, newspapers, and magazines. On December 29, 2012, President Barack Obama signed H.R. 4310, the 2013 National Defense Authorization Act. Section 1078 of the bill authorizes the use of propaganda inside the U.S., which had previously been banned since 1948 when the Smith-Mundt Act was passed. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Operation Mockingbird.
CIA funding and manipulation of the U.S. news media Operation Mockingbird was a secret central agency campaign to influence domestic and foreign media beginning in the 1950s. According to the Congress report published in 1976, quote, the CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred foreign individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times attempt to influence opinion through the use of covert propaganda. These individuals provide the CIA with direct access to a large number of newspapers and periodicals, scores of press services and news agencies, radio and television stations, commercial book publishers, and other foreign media outlets. End quote. Senator Frank Church argued that misinforming the world cost American taxpayers an estimated $265 million a year.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. Now we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, the ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
We have quite a lot of detailed information, and we will evaluate it, and we will include any evidence of wrongdoing or any evidence of impropriety in our final report and make recommendations.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
Senator, do you think that you named the news organizations in your final report?
That remains to be decided.
I think it was entirely in order for our correspondents at that time to make use of CIA agent chiefs of station and other members of the executive staff of CIA as sources of information which were useful in their assessments of world conditions.
Would you say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, It seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
In 1948, Frank Wisner was appointed director of the Office of Special Projects, OSP. Soon afterwards, OSP was renamed the Office of Policy Coordination, OPC. This became the espionage and counterintelligence branch of the Central Agency. Wisner was told to create an organization that concentrated on, quote, propaganda, economic warfare, preventative direct action, including sabotage, anti-sabotage, demolition and evacuation measures, subversion against hostile states, including assistance to underground resistance groups, and support of indigenous anti-communist elements in threatened countries of the free world, end quote. Later that year, Wisner established Mockingbird, a program to influence the domestic and foreign media. Wisner recruited Philip Graham from the Washington Post to run the project within the industry. According to Deborah Davis in Catherine the Great, quote, by the early 1950s, Wisner owned respected members of the New York Times, Newsweek, CBS, and other communications vehicles, end quote. In 1951, Alan W. Dulles persuaded Cord Meyer to join the C.A. However, there is evidence that he was recruited several years earlier and had been spying on the liberal organizations he had been a member of in the later 1940s. According to Deborah Davis, Meyer became Mockingbird's principal operative. In 1977, Rolling Stone alleged that one of the most important journalists under the control of Operation Mockingbird was Joseph Alsop, whose articles appeared in over 300 different newspapers. Other journalists alleged by Rolling Stone magazine to have been willing to promote the views of the C.A. included Stuart Alsop, New York Herald Tribune, Ben Bradley, Newsweek, James Reston, New York Times, Charles Douglas Jackson, Time Magazine, Walter Pincus, Washington Post, William C. Baggs, The Miami News, Herb Gold, The Miami News, and Charles Bartlett, Chattanooga Times. According to Nina Brule of A Very Private Woman, these journalists sometimes wrote articles that were commissioned by Frank Wisner. The C.A. also provided them with classified information to help them with their work. After 1953, the network was overseen by Alan W. Dulles, director of the Central Agency. By this time, Operation Mockingbird had a major influence over 25 newspapers and wire agencies. These organizations were run by people with well-known right-wing views, such as William Paley, CBS, Henry Luce, Time and Life magazine, Arthur Hayes Sulzberger, New York Times, Alfred Friendly, managing editor of the Washington Post, Jerry O'Leary, Washington Star, Hal Hendricks, Miami News, Barry Bingham Sr., Louisville Courier-Journal, James Copley, Copley News Services, and Joseph Harrison, Christian Science Monitor. The Office of Policy Coordination, OPC, was funded by siphoning of funds intended for the Marshall Plan. Some of this money was used to bribe journalists and publishers. Frank Wisner was constantly looking for ways to help convince the public of the dangers of communism. In 1954, Wisner arranged for the funding of the Hollywood production of Animal Farm, the animated allegory based on the book written by George Orwell. According to Alex Constantine, Mockingbird, the Subversion of the Free Press by the C.A., in the 1950s, quote, some 3,000 salaried and contract C.A. employees were eventually engaged in propaganda efforts, end quote. Wisner was also able to restrict newspapers from reporting about certain events. For example, the C.A. plots to overthrow the governments of Iran, see Operation Ajax, and Guatemala, see Operation PB Success. If there is any doubt in your mind that Mockingbird is currently operational, Take a look at these media clips.
Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Is Operation Mockingbird being implemented to influence the global situation humanity is facing? Maybe this compilation of news clips will help you decide.
If someone had said to you in December that by April, millions of people all over the world would be infected with a mysterious new virus that has no vaccine, you'd think they were talking about a Hollywood script. It's happened so fast, it almost doesn't seem real.
Coronavirus pandemic.
Coronavirus pandemic.
Coronavirus.
Coronavirus.
The COVID-19 virus.
This horrible, invisible enemy.
The virus of the virus.
COVID-19.
The coronavirus.
COVID-19.
The apocalypse. Well, most of us have never lived through anything like this.
No one is immune. It threatens all of us.
We're going to a different place, which is a new normal.
A new normal.
A new normal.
A new normal.
A dinner where your temperature is checked before you walk in.
A new normal.
New normal.
Embrace the new normals of social distancing and sheltering in place, all the physical isolation.
The new normal.
The new normal?
When we get out of the new normal and get to a new normal.
The new normal? This is the new normal.
If you want to go to a restaurant, you're going to have your temperature taken before you're allowed inside to dine. So that's just the new normal.
New normal.
This new normal is going to look very, very different.
Not normal, but a new normal.
Long lines for food becoming a new normal.
The new normal.
New normal. There will be a new normal.
A new normal.
New normal. A new normal.
The new normal.
A new normal.
This is the new normal.
This is our new normal.
Our new normal.
A new normal.
Our new normal.
New normal.
The new normal.
Our new normal.
We will transition into the new normal.
And this new normal is just the normal of future generations.
All of us should be able to name all the people we've been in close contact with over the last 2 weeks as a new normal.
Our new normal.
The new normal.
Our new normal.
Our lives will never be the same.
The new normal.
This new normal.
I think everyone's life is completely disrupted. You know, your normal pattern of go to meetings, watch sports events.
And no normalcy as we knew it.
This is not going to go away anytime soon. This will be the new normal until a vaccine is developed.
The vaccine.
Vaccine.
A vaccine.
The vaccine for this terrible virus.
An amazing vaccine to the entire world.
The world awaits a vaccine.
The vaccine.
The vaccines.
The thing that'll get us back is the vaccine.
Until we have a vaccine.
Zero tolerance. So every time we see a case, we basically pounce on it. A vaccine.
A vaccine.
The vaccine.
The vaccine.
To all 7 billion people.
Almost every expert agrees a vaccine is the fastest way to get our world back. You know, it's so important to get not just hundreds of millions, but literally billions of those vaccines.
Legislative amendments that would make vaccinations mandatory for public school students unless they have a medical exemption.
The vaccine is the thing that will change things.
It's a vaccine.
It's a vaccine.
A vaccination.
A COVID-19 vaccine.
A vaccine.
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 The vaccine is critical. Very broad vaccination.
Vaccine.
A vaccine.
The vaccine.
On the issue of the vaccine, which you've said in the past could take a year to 18 months, will we have to wait for a vaccine to hug our family and friends who are outside of our bubble?
A vaccine.
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 Who's a recovered person? Who's a vaccinated person? Because you don't want people moving around the world. So eventually there will be sort of this digital immunity proof that will help facilitate the global reopening up.
Zero tolerance.
The RFID microchip.
Apple and Google announced new technology that could help phones ping other phones around them with their location.
In Hangzhou, to enter a tower block, you need to have your temperature taken and registered. And you must have an app on your phone into which you input your name, temperature, recent travel and ID number. The information generates a color code.
Our new normal.
A new normal.
Our new normal.
New normal. The new normal.
Our new normal.
When you were talking about the phases, the semi-normal phase that you spoke of, that sounded like months and months of that. If a vaccine is still not until 2021, that's many, many months of this new normal.
That's right.
A new normal.
New normal.
A new normal.
The new normal.
A new normal.
This is the new normal.
This is our new normal.
An invisible enemy. Think of that.
I think we're going to have a vaccine by the end of the year. We're doing very well with the vaccine. And I will tell you something. I just literally left a meeting. We're mobilizing our military and other forces, but we're mobilizing our military on the basis that we do have a vaccine. It's a massive job to give this vaccine. Our military is now being mobilized. So at the end of the year, we're going to be able to give it to a lot of people very, very rapidly.
Thank you.
Psychological operations like Mockingbird are extremely dangerous indeed. There are many more psyops currently in play and many with the end goal to keep you buying the lie. Folks, if you think Mockingbird has only infested mainstream television and print press media, think again. This video was simply an introduction to the next video, Mockingbird 2.0, a socially engineered reality, where we explain how this specific psyop has infiltrated the internet, weaving a web of virtual reality by subconscious neural programming via social engineering, all by manipulating the World Wide Web. Family, we weren't given a spirit of fear, but of strength and a sound mind. Take every thought captive, find balance, be strengthened, and know that in and by love perfected, you are whole, and you are love. Perfect love casts out fear. Be love. Aho.